Good morning. So many great-looking people standing and sitting, and this is awesome. How's everybody this morning? Really? Just trying to get a full view here. I've got to stand up. We've got such an interesting room, so some of you I'm missing out on. And see, a lot of you have been wanting to stand the whole time that I've been doing this the last several years, but here's what I want to do. I want to let you first know that today caps off our 2013 Hope for the City initiative, and it has been an amazing thing. And let me give you the big picture. If you aren't familiar with Hope for the City, let me let you know what it is. Basically, it brings together three groups of people. It brings together people that are part of Epic Church, so many of you part of that. It brings our partner churches. Partner churches from around the U.S. come out for this event. It's a multi-day event. And the third group of people that it brings together are the people that we're partnering with, the organizations, the ministries throughout the city of San Francisco that Epic has just said, we want to impact our city through these ministries that are already in operation. So that's what Hope for the City is. It's a multi-day event, really with a concentrated impact over a few days on really loving our city well. And so many of you have been a part of that. Make sure people know when they come in that there are seats for them, that just because you're standing, they don't need to stand. We kind of have an 11 o'clock service and an 11:30 service here at Epic, and so just keep bringing people in. And man, I'm thinking a lot of things right now, which is really fun. But when it comes to events like this, it all comes down to, is there someone who can pull off the whole thing? Is there someone that has the kind of leadership chops that can pull this thing together, that can be a face person for the people who are coming from outside of our city and state? Can we have someone who's good enough who can also be the face person for who our partnerships and organizations here in the city interact with? Is there someone that I can trust to lead such an endeavor that combines about 200 people serving in many, many different projects over multiple days? Is there someone like that God would give to our team? And many of you have heard my heartbeat on this before, and I say it to my staff when I'm in private with them, just so you know I'm not one way in public. And okay, I am sometimes, but I tell all of them this when I'm with them. I believe that God has given me and assembled the best team I could possibly ask for to lead this church. When Shauna and I count our blessings, and we do it daily, Shauna wrote a great post, shaunapilgreen.com, if you want to just get a window into our last 3 years of starting this church. She wrote it last night, and I think it's accurate, based on what I could tell, especially the compliments about me. But I want you to help me. In just a moment, I'm going to welcome to the stage this person who's really been able to pull this off. And you guys know life doesn't slow down when these things take place, right? And I'll let you know in a minute why I've been out. If you guys make way for people that are coming in, if we could move away from the doors, except for an usher or something. I know it's getting crazy, but I got lots of artist circle seats right here. I got some seats on the end. There's plenty of seats. You guys just keep moving around. I won't have any idea what's going on. Bring him in. Craig, come on, man. Bring that guy in. Come on. Keep coming. Keep coming, man. It's going to be a Jesus thing up in here. And he just said, keep bringing the children. Come on. And Lindsay Lee, I'm going to welcome her to the stage in just a second. So hold your applause just for a second. But Lindsay has been a part of this thing from day one. I'll let you know, Ben and Lindsay moved out here when Ben did not have a job and when I had committed to paying Lindsay $1,000 a month, okay? I know, abuse, but I did the best I could. And they moved out here. Since then, they've had a son, and they had to take care of him this weekend, and Ben did a great job, I'm sure, helping out. But when it comes to overseeing our small groups and when it comes to all of the serving initiatives we do here in our city through Epic, I want you to help me welcome the best person I know that does this, Director of City Life here at Epic Church, Lindsay Lee. I don't know if much of our staff is leaving for a conference this afternoon, and man, thanks. She's still serving. That's awesome. And promise Lindsay, whatever she wants when we land in Dallas for the conference we're attending tomorrow, that whatever you want to eat, we're good with it. I mean, as long as we approve. Would you just give us a snapshot? I am grateful for you. Know that. I tell you that individually. I want to say that to our church. Lindsay does an amazing job over so many different compartments, just like the rest of our staff does. But thanks for leading this charge. Thanks for organizing as people came from out of town, as our people here at Epic were able to jump in and serve. It means a ton to me. People would ask me, Ben, what's going on with Hope for the City, this or that? And I just didn't know. Okay, now it's either bad ignorance on my part or it just means she was doing such a great job leading that charge, which you were. And as our church has grown, obviously all of us have had to figure out different ways to grow in our leadership, and you've done a brilliant job with that. But give us some highlights on what was accomplished over the last several days through our Hope for the City initiative.
Absolutely, I'd love to. I'm so grateful just for the opportunity that I have to serve here because this past week was just, I was overwhelmed with joy and I was overwhelmed with gratitude just for the things that I saw, the ways that I saw people serving and loving people, caring for people, the way that people picked up trash on the street. I was just so overwhelmed by it, and so it really encouraged me, and so I'm just grateful I got to be a part of it. I want to tell you just a little bit about the projects. As Ben mentioned a few minutes ago, over the last 3 days, and including today as a 4th day, we've had close to 200 people serving 9 different organizations that we serve with here in the city, and so incredible work has been done. We were at the food bank for 5 different shifts, and in just one shift alone, people sorted over 20,000 pounds of plums and carrots. They packaged food boxes, and what's important about this is the food bank is a huge warehouse, but you should know that the San Francisco Food Bank is who supplies food to all of the agencies and organizations who feed people hot meals every single day and to get food to them. So it's such a crucial thing. They rely on volunteers for that. We also serve with City Teams International on 6th Street. Every Saturday, they have a ministry called Bags of Love, where people deliver brown bag lunches. They knock on doors at SROs, which are single resident occupancies here in the city, and there are hundreds of them with thousands of people who live in one room about the size of an extremely small hotel. Some of those people can't get out to get a meal, and so we were able to deliver about 200 meals to people who might not have been able to otherwise get out and receive one that day. We also covered all of Market Street throughout the week, handing out granola bars and gum. We spent some time in some of the parks in the city handing out bubbles to families and kids, just letting them know, hey, we're glad you're here. If you didn't get a chance to have breakfast this morning or maybe something fun to play with, this is for you. And so it's a great way to share that with people. Also, we spent a ton of time with the Department of Public Works doing street cleaning. We picked up trash and street cleaned in Soma, in Civic Center, Tenderloin District, also in the Mission District. We spent time doing landscape projects within the Sunset. You can see, if you ever wondered what you might find when you clean the streets of San Francisco, to me, the bottom right is by far the most interesting. So you never know what you'll find. But we wanted to let people know when they're walking home or they're walking to the grocery store, hey, someone knows that you're here, someone notices you, and someone cares enough to clean up your sidewalk that we have a nice and a beautiful place to live. We also got the privilege to work with Because Justice Matters. We got to participate in prayer walks, to serve them and encourage them as they are trying to fight human trafficking here in the Bay Area. We also had a group from Epic put on Family Fun Fest yesterday. So 200 kids from the Tenderloin came to Tenderloin Children's Playground, where they got to dance, they got to eat food. Everyone left with a gift bag and a free book. And so a great organization in the Tenderloin to serve with. And then, as many of you who have been here before know, for the last 2.5 years, we've had a partnership with Bessie Carmichael. It's the only public school in the Soma neighborhood, and under-resourced, educate mostly low-income families, and so we got the chance to serve them this week as well. Paint and accessories are not high on the list when the budget is tight, and so we got a chance to redo some things there. We got a chance to paint their schoolyard, help keep kids safe, and do some cleaning, which was really fun. And then one of the big renovations we did last year, we did again this year at a woman's place, which is a women's shelter here in Soma. You'll see some pictures as they continue to slide through, but They do programs of transitional housing for 18 months and then substance abuse programs for women in the city. And so we got the chance to redo a family center, a waiting room for families when they're trying to get into the shelter, a fun place for kids to be, a safe haven while their parents are trying to figure out where they're going to spend the night and where they're going to get resources. And then for the women who are in those transitional housing programs, we got the chance to redo their bedrooms. So this is a place they call home. And so for us, it may look like a dorm room, but we got the chance to clean those rooms, to paint them, to hang curtains, to do a little bit of accent decorating there, and to really make them recognize the value that they have, the value that God has given them because he created them. And so it was a privilege to be able to serve them. You can see this last picture is the before and after picture. So pretty incredible work that was done. And we'll continue this afternoon and tomorrow to serve with City Impact in the Tenderloin as well. Again, I love that in the Bible it says that Jesus did not come to be served, but to serve. And so individually and collectively, as we seek to orient our entire lives around Jesus, serving has to become a part of who we are. And so I'm so grateful to see that in our church and to see that in you. And so I want to say thank you. And I think to have 200 people over 4 days serving 9 different organizations is something just for us to celebrate this morning.
Huge.
So thank you guys so much.
We've really wanted this to be a part of our DNA since day one. And so many of those partnerships started before the church started, which is really cool. And we're looking forward to what's ahead. We want to be a church who certainly we want to have great experience inside the walls of our church. Obviously, I hope you feel that way when you leave this morning. But we also want to be a church who goes beyond our walls, both here in San Francisco, around our country, and even to places like Uganda, where we have a partnership. And so that's the kind of church we want to be. Again, I'm glad that you're here. As people keep coming in, just tell them, hey, it's a party up in here. Just sit wherever you want. Stage, got a lot of seating up here. Have you ever had that moment where going into the moment, you had really clear expectations about what was going to happen, and then you get into the moment and what happened was totally unexpected? Anybody? And depending on how it goes, it can be a great thing or a terrible thing, right? Well, it was February 10th, the year was 2000, and I'll let you know a little bit about what was, yes, I was alive then, okay? I know some of you weren't, but I was, and I had just graduated from college the December before, so a couple months prior. Shauna and I had been dating for about 2 months as of February 10th. And we're crazy. And we'd been dating for about 2 months. And after I graduated from college, I spent the month of January, about a month up till February 7th, I believe, in China. I wanted to, I'd never been out of the country, and I wanted to go to a different country, linked up with some people in China, went over there, hung with some missionaries, and did some ministry while I was over there for a month or so. Came back like February 8th, Tuesday night, but now it's Thursday, February 10th. I'm still not acclimated to the time change. I haven't gotten a haircut, and listen, it didn't start like this, all right? Okay, it probably did start like that, but then I grew out of that and then grew into this. But I hadn't had a haircut, and it didn't matter. I was just kind of like getting acclimated back to life, and I hadn't shaved. And then my mom said that my Uncle Greg was flying into the Jackson, Mississippi airport. I was at my parents' house in Louisiana. Said that my Uncle Greg, her brother, was flying into the Jackson, Mississippi airport. Did I want to ride over with her about 10 o'clock that night, 2 hours away, to go pick him up? And I'm like, well, sure. He's a enjoyable guy. Mom and I will have some good time. I'll sleep if she's dry. I mean, whatever. And so we go over there, and we're waiting on him. This was before 9/11, so you could go into the airports a little bit further. And we're waiting on him, and the plane had arrived, and so I was going to hide behind a column, and my mom was going to tell me whenever my Uncle Greg passed by, I was going to jump out, scare him, that whole deal. That's kind of the guy I am. And so she says, he's coming. I jump out to scare my Uncle Greg, and it's not my Uncle Greg. It's my girlfriend, Shauna. Now, you would think I would have been delighted. I had been told that Shauna was coming to see me the next weekend. Well, you know when you're away in a faraway place by yourself, you can have some crazy thoughts, right? Anybody have crazy thoughts when they're away? Like many of you are crazy regardless, but I decided that even though we'd only been dating a couple of months, perspective is a great thing. or a terrible thing. But I decided while I was in China, I had determined that though we had only been dating a couple of months, I felt like I knew this girl well enough, and hopefully she knew me well enough that when I came back home and when she showed up February 17th, I was going to ask her to spend the rest of her life with me. So when I see her at the airport, I'm thinking, I don't have a ring. If you're here this weekend, you're probably not here next weekend. And so I was a little bit frustrated and delighted, if you've ever seen that in a person's face who hasn't shaved and doesn't know what time it is. So that was me. And girls, I'll let Shauna tell you the long girl version. Guys, the guy version is, I found a ring. She said, yes, we're happily married. All right, that's the 45-second male version. And ladies, you can take her out for tea, and you guys can get your nails done and go get scarred. I don't know. I mean, whatever it is you guys do when you tell stories like that to one another. But it was such an unexpected moment, and it certainly was a moment of delight, but when you're thinking one thing, like I didn't even think there were any other possibilities, and then I experienced something completely different. As we continue to go along in this kingdom series, what you're going to see from the life, the teaching, even the death, and certainly the resurrection of Jesus is that his life is just full of unexpected moments. It's one after another, and so he piques the curiosity of everyone. In fact, Tim did such a great job. If you were here last week, if not, watch the podcast. It was great. Tim, there it is, all right? It was great. Is Tim in the room? He thought he's claustrophobic. I'm sure he's doing something with that food truck. Tim did a great job sharing with us the story of the healing of the paralytic, and there were so many unexpected moments in that story, right? You've got 4 friends getting their buddy through the roof. I mean, that's unexpected. Can you imagine if this thing caves in while I'm talking? And then you have the unexpected thing of Jesus healing the guy that had been paralyzed for a long time. And then Jesus goes beyond that and does something even more unexpected, and he says, son, your sins are forgiven. And they're like, whoa, that was unexpected because we thought only God had the authority to forgive sin. And it said in Mark chapter 2, verse 12, that when everyone went away from that moment of the healing of the paralytic and all that took place there and all that they saw Jesus did, they walked away and they said, we never saw anything like this. Always unexpected moments, one after another after another. And I want to pick up right where Tim left off and invite you to witness this other unexpected moment that happened as soon as we left the healing of the paralytic. So Mark chapter 2, if you have a Bible, if you need one, raise your hand. We've got lots of Bibles, and we are ready to deliver them into your hands. Keep your hands up. I'll tell you what page we're on. Get those hands up. Come on. A gift from us to you. Keep those hands up high. Mark chapter 2, we'll start in verse 13. If you received one of those Bibles, we're on page 543. 543, and I want you just to see what takes place right after this moment. It's another powerful and yet unexpected experience. Would you all stand with me? Those of you who aren't standing already. The AC is working overtime, thankfully. Here we go. Mark chapter 2, 13 through 17. He is Jesus. So Jesus went out again beside the sea, and all the crowd was coming to him, and he was teaching them. And as he passed by, he saw Levi, the son of Alphaeus, sitting at the tax booth, and he said to him, follow me. And he rose and followed him. And as he reclined at table in his house, many tax collectors and sinners were reclining with Jesus and his disciples, for there were many who followed him. And the scribes of the Pharisees, when they saw that he was eating with sinners and tax collectors, said to his disciples, why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners? And when Jesus heard it, he said to them, those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners. You may be seated, and I hope that you'll experience something unexpected this morning in your own life, as all of the people who are part of this next scene experienced with Jesus. So Jesus did all the things that we talked about last week. He healed the paralytic. They're coming in through the roof. He's talking about, I have the authority to forgive sins. And when someone begins to do unexpected things on this kind of magnitude and scale, all of a sudden it piques everyone else's curiosity, right? some people that are for him, but even people that are against him. All in all, he's going to begin to build these crowds, right with moments like these, right from the get-go of his ministry. He's going to have people start showing up by the masses, and here's what I love. Here's what you need to think is beautiful. Here's what you need to relish in this morning. Throughout the Gospels and throughout the life of Jesus, you see the crowds pressing in on him all the time, and while he's surrounded by the hundreds, and while he's surrounded sometimes by the many thousands, he never misses this opportunity, and he has this uncanny ability to recognize the individual. I mean, uncanny. I mean, like, the crowds are all on him, right? They're pushing against him. One woman touches his cloak one day, and he's like, who did that? And Peter's like, Jesus, you're crazy. There are people all over you. He said, no, I felt power go out of me. Who is the individual? You see, only the best of the best leaders can be amongst the crowd all the time and recognize individuals. And he does this. And so if you're feeling like you're in a crowd this morning, anybody? Jesus is also looking at you individually. And those of you who live here, and we realize every day, sometimes we forget that we live in the second most densely populated city in the U.S., only to Manhattan. And so we're crowded all the time. You can't escape this thing, right? Jesus is constantly focusing on, calling out, inviting individuals out of the crowd. And so you have to think in this moment, this Levi guy, I mean, the crowd is listening to Jesus teach. Remember, they're walking along the sea. He's teaching them, and he just quits teaching to focus on one man. And so no matter how overlooked it seems you are in your life today, I want you to know Jesus is looking. Like he's up to a collective thing here at Epic Church and in his kingdom, but he's doing work in the hearts of individuals. He's doing work in the hearts of individuals. Now, you would imagine that in this setting, and the same question that we would have as well as these guys is this: okay, Jesus, if you're establishing a new kingdom when you come to earth, we need to know about that kingdom. Who can enter that kingdom? What are the requirements? Jesus, what's the standard? Jesus, where do you draw the line? Jesus, who's in and who's out? Well, you can bet one thing. Even though Levi didn't know the standard necessarily, the Pharisees didn't know the standard, the crowds didn't understand all of the requirements, here's the assumption they all possess collectively. Whatever the standard is, here's what we know. The religious Pharisees certainly will be the first ones in, and the tax collectors almost certainly will be the first ones out. That would have been the expectation, right? That's what everyone, if you didn't know the end of the story, that's what you would have expected. But Jesus doesn't always do what's expected. In fact, I might say he rarely does what's expected. Rarely. And so here's the question. Who can enter this kingdom? Who can enter this kingdom? Here's the answer, and then I'll break it down for you. Who can enter this kingdom? Anyone who trusts Jesus as their king. Anyone who trusts Jesus as their king. Anyone. Levi is a tax collector. I assume you would understand that he doesn't have many friends, right? I mean, the only way you're a friend of Levi is if you're getting a cut, right? Your relationship to a situation changes perspective, doesn't it? Right? Because if you're getting 20% of everything that Levi gets, like, this guy's awesome, what's wrong? Right? But everyone else, the masses, the ones who lived in the community, the ones who got money taken from them legally and illegally by this guy Levi. They're like, what is Jesus doing? Remember, he's teaching all of the crowds. He's got all of this attention. He's got all the focus. And he turns away from the crowd and he looks right at this tax collector. Right at him. They had to be appalled that he would stop teaching, and even more appalled that he would look at this tax collector and speak to him, and then he invites this tax collector to follow him. But then he takes it a step further. He doesn't just invite him to follow him. Jesus invites himself over to this guy's place for dinner. Now, my mom told me never to invite myself. Anybody else? But I guess when you got the authority of Jesus, like, well, okay, I guess you can, right? I mean, what are you going to say to a guy that invites himself over and has like all the authority, right? Like, is the king. Like, sure, we were expecting you. So So Jesus goes to his home. Now, in the 21st century that we live in, you would understand that if you were to have a meal with someone today, in some way there would be a sign of fellowship or something like that, but especially in the first century, for Jesus to be reclining at the meal table with this tax collector and sinner and all of his buddies, not just him, but all of his friends, there was some way Jesus was saying there's an acceptance here. Now, is it a full acceptance of his lifestyle? Probably not. We'll get there in a second. But there was some way Jesus was saying, like, there's something here that I approve of. This is right. He wasn't endorsing a lifestyle, but he was endorsing a way of living. Like, it's right for me to be here. I'm supposed to be here. In fact, Jesus was just beginning to make all kinds of bold statements like this. He was saying, I have shown up on this planet because this is my mission. To seek what's lost, to heal what's broken. This is what I came for. We have a number of values here at Epic, and if you attend our 1.0, we'll cover these, but here's one that we really rally around, and it's this. Because of the grace of Jesus, your past doesn't have to dictate your future. It can, and some of you are letting it, but because of what Jesus is showing up with, because of what's true, because of the way the economy works in his kingdom, your past doesn't have to dictate your future. He can erase that. And so anyone can enter this kingdom. And some of you are like, you don't know my neighbor. You don't know mine. Anyone can enter this. Anyone. And some of you struggle with that. Like, no, Ben, you don't know this person. They're so terrible. What the Gospels teach us over and over again is that this is possible for anyone. And that in this kingdom, all things become possible. So anyone who trusts Jesus. Anyone who trusts Jesus. Look at verse 17. Jesus says something interesting, right? The Pharisees are like, what are you doing? Why would Jesus be eating a meal with tax collectors and sinners? Who does he think he is? He's supposed to be a good Jewish guy. This is not really cool, Jesus. They are not clean. They're sinners. We're not, but they're sinners. What are you doing? Here's what Jesus says in 17. He looks at the Pharisees, and he says, those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners. Now, if you just look at this on the surface, here's what you would think. That when Jesus says this to the Pharisees, what he's saying to the Pharisees is, you guys are healthy and you're righteous, right? You would think that's what he would say. Let me tell it to you this way. July 2013, this has been the worst combined health month for me and my wife. The worst. We've been married 12 and a half years. The only time Shauna's ever been to the hospital before this month was when she had babies. We do not go to the doctor often. I've only been to the doctor once a year, only for my annual physical. The only reason I do that is because Shauna wouldn't come to church if I didn't get my physical. That's a true story. So it's a great relationship. I get my physical, she's a participant at Epic. And when I don't, she isn't. I mean, it's crazy. And so we don't do much medication, and we're grateful for that. But this month it just took the best out of us and the worst out of us, and we found ourselves facing sickness in a way we haven't in our married life, and we're grateful for how it's been so far. But the month has been terrible. Shauna got bit by something in Uganda towards the end of June. Came home, began to treat that. The night of July 4th, she got crazy fever, chills, aches. She had to be taken to the emergency room on July the 6th. And literally from July 4th to July 14th, Shauna went nowhere besides the doctor's office or a hospital. All right, and I know everybody's got worse stories. We're grateful. That's the point of the story, is that we don't have this much. And so that was her, and I'm so glad we're over that. Let's get back to normal life. And then this past Sunday night, I started feeling bad, and then it got worse and worse. And then the middle of the night, Tuesday, I was done for. I couldn't get out of the bed. All day Wednesday, all day Thursday. Finally, Friday, it broke a little bit, but it just wiped us out. So I've been out of play all week, and it's just not been a good month, right? August we're gonna win in August, and it can be worse, right? And so here's the deal: we don't go to the doctor much, and we don't do many medications at all ever. But it was so bad for both of us this month that we knew we needed medical attention, right? I'm that guy. I'm like, oh, the headache will go away. Give me some junk food. It'll go away. Give me some more coffee, right? But this was the thing that was so terrible that we couldn't take care of it ourselves. Here's what Jesus is saying. He's not saying the Pharisees are healthy. He's saying only people who know they're sick go to the doctor. You see it? He's not saying you guys are healthy and righteous. He's saying, no. The reason why I'm not here for you yet is because you don't have a place in your heart for me because you don't think you need me. Isn't that great? He's going, listen, you're not healthy. But only those who know they need a doctor go to the doctor, right? People who think that they're not sick and people who think they can cure their own symptoms never go to the doctor, nor should you. Anyone who trusts in Jesus, the Pharisees, at least these guys up to this point, they haven't been able to trust anyone and in anyone yet but themselves. Where's your trust? Really? Where's your trust? Really? I know what happens on the sunny days. I know what songs you sing and how you skip down the street. But where's your trust? Who are you counting on? Who are you depending on? Who's going to bridge the gap between you and God? Pharisees thought they could handle it themselves. So they didn't come to Jesus in that way. So anyone who can enter the kingdom, anyone who trusts Jesus as their king. As their king. I asked a question earlier. I said, who can enter this kingdom? And I said, anyone. Let me pose the question a little bit different way here. Who can enter the kingdom? Anyone. Who can enter this kingdom on their own terms? No one. No one. I want you to see what threatened the Pharisees from participating in this kingdom. I want you to see what threatened the tax collectors from participating in this kingdom. And I want every one of us in this room to think about what is threatening our participation in Jesus' kingdom the most. And I don't care if you've been in church all your life. This is a new thing for you. I'm going to give you some ideas and examples, and I want you to put yourself into this question and think, what threatens my participation in what Jesus is doing with my life in this kingdom the most? For the religious leaders, here's what threatened them the most. They could not give up being their own king. They loved power, they loved control, they loved authority, they loved making the rules, they loved forcing the rules onto Jesus. That's what threatened them the most. And then you get to the tax collectors and sinners. What's threatening them the most? Well, what's threatening them the most is that while Jesus is showing some form of acceptance, he's still saying what? Follow me. He doesn't sit down at the table with them and just say, all right, guys, I'm just showing the world out here that I condone everything you're doing. I love you guys. Hey, keep it up. See, people ask all the time, Ben, I've got questions about church. I've got questions about God. Does God accept people who, and then they fill in the blank with lots of different things. I get that every week or month for sure. Does God accept people who? Fill in the blank. Well, acceptance is such an interesting word. If you mean, did God accept Levi in one way? Absolutely. Didn't matter his past. Didn't matter that he had been stealing money from people. It didn't matter that he wanted nothing to do with Jesus before. But Jesus didn't accept him in the way, hey, just come as you are and keep coming as you are. Come as you are, follow me. Come as you are, but follow me. Think about the woman caught in adultery, John chapter 8. The woman's caught in adultery, and it's this beautiful moment of redemption and forgiveness. And Jesus says to her, no one's condemning you, and I don't condemn you either. But then he doesn't stop there. He says to her, go and sin no more. There's only one king in this kingdom. It's not us. It's not you. It's not me. It's not money. It's not your job. It's not your status. It's not your relationship. It's not. So we really need to decide, do we want to participate in this kingdom? And so, Ben, how can you say that anyone can enter, but no one can enter on their own terms? Because we have a gracious and merciful king. He's gracious and merciful. Room for everyone. But he's a king. He's Lord. He's master. He's God. He's not looking for a co-God, though I'm sure you would be awesome. I'm sure if he were, you'd be like the next higher. And so you and I have got to decide. That's why our vision here for Epic, for our church, is this. Our vision for Epic Church is to see an increasing number of people in San Francisco orient their entire lives around Jesus. Everything. Why do we want to do this? Is because Jesus is a king. And the scriptures tell us that everything already orients around Jesus. Everything does submit to him. Let me give you some beautiful words from Colossians chapter 1, verses 15 through 18. Mark these down and you can go back and read them later. Colossians chapter 1, 15 through 18. Everywhere you see the word he is talking about Jesus. So I'm just going to say Jesus instead of the pronoun he. Jesus is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by Jesus, all things were created. That's a lot of things, yeah? Lots of things. In heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through Jesus and for Jesus. That's why we orient our lives around him, because everything's about him. 17. And Jesus is before all things, and in Jesus all things hold together. And Jesus is the head of the body, the church. Jesus is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in everything Jesus might be preeminent. Another way to say that is supreme. Another way to say that is God. First, ultimate. So it's a fact, he is, but where the question is this: is he in your heart this? Is he this to you? And some of you are like, Ben, I just came in here for the first time. Well, keep coming. We want to explore this. We want to be a church that helps people see that Jesus is not just king, but the kind of king that he is. I said in week 1 of this series, we should follow Jesus because he's king, right? He just is. But we should want to follow him because of the kind of king that he is. He's not going to use his kingship to crush us. He's going to use his kingship to be crushed for us. And just remind me again, why wouldn't we want to follow that kind of king? He is king, that's true, period. But the desire should come because, my goodness, he's not going to crush me, though he has that authority. He's not going to give me what I deserve. He's going to take what I deserve. He's going to be crushed for me, and I'm going to get to go free. This is the crux of our message. This is not like today's message. This is the whole message. Well, I want to look at the trajectory of the Pharisees and this guy Levi. Like if you just saw their lives from the beginning and you had to, make a timeline for how things probably went, you would certainly think like the religious guys, like, man, Jesus, they probably flanked Jesus to his right and his left when he made his speeches. And Jesus probably would look at the Pharisees later on because they were religious. They never got it wrong. He'd probably look at them and go, everybody, would you just live like this? Would you just do this? But what the scriptures tell you, if you keep reading through Mark or any of the other gospels, that these Pharisees, probably some of these very same ones, they're going to be the ones responsible partly for arresting and ultimately murdering Jesus. The religious guys. Well, what about this guy Levi? Did he just kind of laugh at Jesus' offer? Did he mock the thing that Jesus invited him into? Did he walk away from it? This guy Levi also goes by a different name. Matthew, as in one of the 12 disciples, as in the guy who wrote the first book in the New Testament, the guy who wrote 28 chapters, a book called the same thing, Matthew. He didn't enter in on his own terms, but he was willing to leave what he had been a part of to follow Jesus and enter this kingdom. And if you and I are going to be participants in this kingdom, there's some things we'll have to leave as well. At the end of the day, you have to decide. Your life's going to orbit, and it's going to orient around some main point. There's going to be something in your life. We call this the master principle at Epic. There's something in your life that is the master. And everything, at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, everything's going to submit to whatever it is. So if it's your job, everything submits to it. Your family, your relationships, your income submits to it. Your church attendance, your serving in this church, how you are generous or not, everything submits to how the job is. If it's a relationship, then it's the master, and everything else has to come up under it and say, this is number one. But if it's Jesus, the same will be true. So you'll think about your work in terms of what this relationship with this king means. You'll think about how you reach out to your neighbors in terms of what the relationship with this king means. You'll think about how you serve and how you give generously and how you interact with people who are like you and who are nothing like you if Jesus is king. So who's your king? Who's your king? Would you all pray with me? Our band's going to come up and just help us through music declare the reality of what we've been talking about the last few moments. I know we can't do this, but I wish we could pull this guy Levi out today in 2013 and interview him. And just to have him tell us what it was like to realize he was invited to be a part of God's kingdom on earth and for all eternity. You guys can go ahead and drop the lights if that's cool. I wish we could interview him and just say, Levi, what was that like? I think he would say something like, it blew my mind. Jesus was teaching a crowd. I didn't even think he noticed me, and then all of a sudden, he invites me to follow him, and then he comes over to my house for dinner. And he offered me something that my life of tax collecting didn't offer me. Yeah, I had to relinquish some things because I can't be king and have him be king. He's the king. But it was worth it. And then Jesus entrusted me, Levi would tell us, Matthew, he would say, then Jesus entrusted me and a few others with making this movement spread throughout the first century. Friends in this room, because of who Jesus is, anything and everything becomes possible in his kingdom. So quit giving up. Quit hanging your head. There's hope. There's hope. He's a restorer. He's a forgiver. He's an empowerer. He knows how to put us in places using his authority that we could never get on our own. What threatens your participation in this kingdom? What's ruling your life? And is it time for a change? For some of you, you've never entered into the kingdom we speak of, and you don't really even know what all a relationship with Jesus would be like, but I'd love for some of our leaders and our staff to be able to walk you through that throughout this week and the coming days, just to say, hey, we don't have it all figured out, but here's what we've seen in our own life. Here's who we've found Jesus to be, and so you can let us know. You can just check on your card. I want to become a Christian today, or I'm interested in Epic Church, or I'm interested in joining a group, or volunteering, whatever. You can do that in a moment on your communication card. But I just want you to consider for yourselves, every one of us, how beautiful a thing could it be if we allowed Jesus to do with us what he wants to do? What if we submitted to that? What if we got on board with it? I can only imagine our story would not be the same as this Levi guy, but we would have our own adventure with him. I think we'd be blown away. I pray that you will allow this king, who is the king, to reside as king in your heart and to watch the beautiful things that he creates along the way. Would you all stand with me as we just respond and declare this together?